In recent months, the situation has worsened, causing businesses in the US to lay off workers to avoid bankruptcy. And my husband was one of those people who were fired despite his contribution to the company. The day he told me about that, I was shocked. Hi everyone, I'm Renee, 28 years old from the USA. My husband is Tom, 4 years older than me. We have been married for nearly 3 years and had a 2.5-year-old boy. Everyone says I'm blessed to have a good husband like Tom, but honestly, I can feel my love for him fading and without him doing anything wrong. Tom and I met at our university the day he graduated, and I was in my first year. Tom was a hard-working and very intelligent student. We got to know each other for the first time at the graduation ceremony when he was getting on stage for the certificate of top 5 graduates with the highest scores, and I was just a freshman coming to support the program. And at that moment, I fell in love with his sincere and honest appearance. During the time I was still in college and Tom went to work, I didn't know how many times I made my friends jealous of having a thoughtful boyfriend like Tom. They envied me because whatever cosmetics or jewelry we talked about the day before, almost the next day I would have them in my room. Of course, they were bought by Tom. He could do so because he got a software writing job with a great income for one large local company right after graduation. But because he spoiled me so much, I gradually became greedy and didn't know when to stop and be satisfied with what I had. I would constantly demand more things from Tom, and if he was late, I would be mad at him about it. Sometimes, even when Tom fulfilled my requests so quickly, it also made me angry. I wanted him to be more proactive, instead of waiting until I ask for something, then buy it. I knew very well that I was absurd, but could not change my attitude. At the end of my 4 years in college, many male students and successful men flirted with me. Honestly, sometimes I was attracted and distracted by their appearance, but partly because of my parents' advice, partly because of Tom's sincere love for me for 4 long years, I decided to marry him. In the first year of marriage, I had nothing to complain about Tom. He is a good man, always loving, taking great care of me like I was his little princess. Even before I had my baby, all the house chores were actively done by Tom. I could just lie down watching movies while Tom happily cleaned and cooked. I know it is a stereotype, but IT people like Tom can be quite dry. He didn't feel the need to hang out or make friends. Therefore, Tom rarely took me out, only when I requested. After I gave birth to our child, Tom spoiled me even more. I think there's nothing wrong with it because I gave him a healthy son and contributed to the family's income as well. But in recent months, as you all know, the bad situation of the global pandemic has affected businesses seriously. Many American companies had to lay off workers to avoid bankruptcy, and my husband Tom was one of those people who were fired so coldly by his company, despite his devotion to them. The day he announced it to me, I was shocked. I only do a relatively normal office job because, in the past few years, I am used to Tom being the breadwinner and spoiling me. The news that he had lost his job was the beginning of all the problems between us. At first, I thought I would just enjoy being spoiled by my husband for a few months. But then months turned into 1 year. Then before I knew it, I was a lazy, independent woman for over 2 years now. I didn't realize how bad the situation was until we sat down to have a serious talk with each other about our savings over the past 2 years. We have a common bank account with the money in it, of course, largely thanks to Tom's contribution. But I did not expect this day to come at all. So over the years, I have not saved up, but spent most of that money. Hearing that, Tom just sighed. He did not scold me, but just advised me to change from then on because we had a baby to worry about. Somehow, at the moment, I was so offended, even though the one at fault was me. I stood up and screamed, "Why are you always so calm, Tom? Why are you not angry with me for what I've done? I spent all our money. Now that you've lost your job, how can you still be so carefree?" In response to my absurd attitude, Tom just kept silent and said nothing, making me even madder. It was as if I was talking to a wall. A few weeks later, Tom actively searched for jobs online and tried to apply, but the impact of the epidemic was still so severe that companies froze their hires. And so my husband, with a hard-working nature and a passion for work, immediately took a few labor jobs with the reason that at least he could earn income for his family. He became a rental truck driver combined with extra heavy works. He came home and looked dirty every day. And as usual, no matter how hard it was, Tom didn't complain at all because he wanted to try to give me and his baby a good life. Seeing his appearance change like that, I couldn't help but compare him to other husbands who still had their jobs and complained to him. I knew I was selfish, but sometimes I couldn't help but say all my thoughts. I've seen truck drivers before, and not all of them look ugly and dirty as you, Tom. I think even when you drive a truck, you should be well dressed. Going home after a hard day and having to listen to his wife babbling like that during dinners, Tom's feelings must hurt so much, but he did not get angry at me. He just quietly put down his chopsticks and went to take a shower to please me. Realizing that I was outrageous, that night I took out his work shirts and ironed them for him to wear the next day. Such a simple thing that any wives can do for her husband like that was enough for Tom to immediately forget my words of ignorance and praise me in front of our baby. Did you see your mother today? She's the best. When you grow up, you should marry someone like her, yeah? Hearing that, I was both happy but also worried that he would not change. Our life was not too comfortable, but also not too bad. But the old feelings still sometimes came to find me, making me feel Tom's sacrifice and pampering is always not enough. Tom is not naturally romantic at all, while women who want their loved ones to care about their feelings. I didn't ask for lobster or jewelry. I simply wanted to celebrate special days with my husband, but he didn't actively understand it either. A lot of things built up, plus the fact that I value appearance so much, I was sad and ashamed to see my husband like that. I do not want him to do those hard jobs anymore, because I was afraid that when other people see him, they will make fun of him. Tom seemed sad, but did not argue. He said the epidemic was unpredictable, and he was also worried about bringing the disease home to his wife and child, so he could stay home. Once again, I got exactly what I wanted, but it seemed to be another mistake. Normally, Tom was busy outside, so we were only together for a few hours, in the evenings and weekends, yet I was so bored with him already. Now you can imagine how boring our married life is when we have to face each other 24 hours a day. Last week, we got in another argument because he still did not rest at home, but started to tinker around the house so loudly. I shouted at him again and receiving only silence and endurance in return. I felt trapped in my feelings in the situation with my husband. Am I too selfish? I just want my husband to focus on finding a job like before. Is my wish wrong? What should I do, guys?